Hello and welcome to Relatively Crafty, a knitting podcast. I'm your host, Christy. I come to you from the Denver area of Colorado, where I live with my husband, Ron, our two daughters, Tatum and Delaney, our tuxedo kitty, Lilu, and our Podengo puppy, Sophie. Welcome. This is a knitting podcast. As I mentioned already, I will talk about knitting, things that I have finished, things that I am currently knitting, things that I am hoping to knit soon in the future. There is cat fur everywhere. Lilu is a long-haired tuxedo cat. We when we went to get her, to adopt her, because we are big believers in adopting strays. Some might say that's how I got married. Sorry, that's not very nice. Ron is an amazing husband. Don't get me wrong. Anyway, so when we were planning on getting a cat, Lilu was our first pet here in Colorado, and we went in thinking we're gonna get a short-haired, sleek tabby or maybe a calico, and ended up with a long-haired tuxedo cat. I'm not sure how we did that, but she's been an amazing cat. The problem is because she's long-haired, now that we're starting to go into summer, she is shedding something fierce, and there is cat fur everywhere. It gets in your mouth, it gets all in your clothes, it's on every surface. And the worst part is that it will get in my eyes, like underneath my contacts, and it kills me. But we're getting ready. So far we've had a really mild late spring, early summer. We are still getting a lot of rain, which has been amazing, and it has been really cool. The low 70s, high 60s most days. Although I think that end of next week we get into the mid 80s. But I have been really enjoying that because I don't like a lot of the heat, and so has Lilu. However, if we do get a true summer here pretty soon, we might consider giving her like a lion cut, because it's hard to keep all of that fur groomed, especially because she has like a massive like chest beard that is super long and gets in the way as she's trying to groom the rest of her. All she's ending up doing is licking that neck beard. Anyway, this is not a cat podcast, I'm sorry. But there was fur that was flying. Anyway, so today is June 11th. I have been a knitting fool lately the past couple of months. It's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it. And this past couple of weeks since I podcast last has been no different. I recently went on a work trip to Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I don't know if you guys ever go on work trips. This was actually my first in my entire life. It was kind of cool. And kind of scary because as I said, it was the first time. So, and I'm not a massive traveler. Like, we've gone on trips, obviously. We just went to New York a couple of months ago, and we regularly go camping, regularly go camping in my parents' RV, or we'll go, last year we went to New Orleans and Florida, but I've never gone, not since I was 20 and I moved to Alaska for like 4 months, have I gone on a plane by myself. And if you don't know, 20 was a long time ago. It was like 25 plus years ago. So, so things have changed. I mean, it was before 9/11, you could, everybody could go with you to your gate. It's all kinds of different. So my parents, when I moved to Alaska, I say moved, I was there for 4 months, but anyway, my parents walked with me to my gate. And when I came home from Alaska, the couple that I was living with, they also walked me to my gate. So I didn't have to really do it all on my own. This time I really did. Now, thankfully, we are, in the new millennium, and their technology is a wonderful thing. So my brother was able to drop me off at the airport, and I had my phone that I'd already checked in to my flight, and I had my boarding pass already ready, and I just had to get through security, and I found my seat. Now, of course, I found my gate entirely early because I have anxiety and I need to be prepared, and so I was there like 2 hours before the flight took off, but that was fine because I have my knitting, and that can keep me involved and entertained for untold amounts of time. And then I was concerned about getting to Minneapolis because I had never been to Minnesota at all before. And I had to Uber for the first time from the airport to the hotel, all by myself. And while I am not, I am technologically savvy, and I do things. I am connected to my phone all the time. I do things regularly on my phone. I am not a Luddite. My husband is a Luddite, but I had never Ubered before, and because of my hearing issues, I'm hearing impaired. I wear hearing aids. Taking a ride from somebody that I don't know and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to hear very well is just an added wrinkle in the process. And so I was able to, I have to say that Uber's app is very easy to use, and I was able to get a ride without a problem. And thankfully both the driver that drove me to the hotel and the one that drove me back to the airport both spoke very at a volume that I could understand. I did have to have them repeat themselves a couple of times, but once they kind of caught on that I needed them to speak up a little bit, they did, and it was awesome. So yeah, I was very proud of myself that I managed to Uber successfully, and I did the 4-day trip, learned lots of things, rubbed elbows with the right kind of people in my company. And yeah, I think it was a good thing. Plus, I had to work. So I had like all day trainings, and then in the evenings I would work at my office in my hotel room because the work doesn't stop just because you're out of town. And this was not the optimal time of the month for me to like take a vacation. So I would do that, and then I would have the rest of the evening in the hotel room all by myself to do exactly what I wanted to do. And that is always knitting. I always just want to knit. So I got lots of things knit while I was gone. And then of course, waiting in the airports and then on the planes. And yeah, lots and lots of knitting happened recently. So sorry that I apparently needed to expel all of that information. Sorry. I will talk about life later. Let's get into the knitting. I have finished 3 things. I have 3 finished objects to show you. One I don't have here, but you guys saw most of it already. The last time that I podcast, I had been, I had been close to finishing it. So, it is here. It is called the Ferris Wheel Fade. Let me just confirm that. I feel like I'm off just a little bit on that name. Nope, I'm right. It's the Ferris Wheel Fade by Lena Matheson, who is, I learned she is Soft Yarn Designs on Instagram. So if you want to follow her, you can follow her on Instagram. Soft Yarn is one word, designs. And yeah, so this was a cute little faded, what do you guys call these short sleeve tops? Because I always want to say, anything that I'm knitting that's for the body, unless it's obviously a shrug or a vest, I want to call it a sweater. But a sweater really is long sleeve, right? I don't know. So I'm for lack of a better term, this sweater is is meant to be a faded sweater with this really cute detail on the neckline and the sleeves. You do something similar, so you do it with two colors on the neckline and the sleeves, and then on the hem of the sweater, you do it the same thing, but with one color. So, so it has a slightly different effect, but I do like that because it's color work. You know, you're using two colors, and so that can cause the hem of the sweater to be a little less elastic, and that can be a bad thing for those of us like me who carry our weight in our midsection. You definitely want to have it be nice and loose in that area. So I knit this out of half of the Out of Town Gradient Fade set by 6 and 7 Fibers. She had come to my local yarn shop, which is Colorful Yarns in Centennial, years ago. I'm sure she's been there. Actually, I know she's been there since, but this was several years ago, before COVID or right around COVID. I feel it must have been before COVID. Maybe I can tell you that. Hold on. I don't know that it really matters to you, honestly, but yes, before COVID, 2018, I bought this. So it was right around the time that Andrea Mowry came out with her So Faded, and everybody was going fade crazy, and so the gal who dies for 6 and 7 Fibers very wisely put up a fade set, and it was a 5-color fade. Here is what, I'm over to the side so that I can post pictures without cutting off half my face. But here's what the fade set looked like, and it was for the So Faded sweater or for a Find Your Fade. Maybe it was for a Find Your Fade. I bought it for the So Faded, but she may have dyed it for a Find Your Fade, which is that shawl that Andrea had done that was huge in like 2017, 2018. Anyway, so I had initially bought it with the plan to utilize most of the orange side of it. The brownie purple was something that was going to be kind of at the bottom. But when I had made that, that Arco Iris sweater for my mom that didn't fit, this one, Mom was asking for yarns that weren't solid. She didn't want a solid sweater, and so I had this fade kit, and I'm like, would you like this? And she said yes, and she picked out the Ferris wheel fade sweater, and I realized that with the short sleeve sweater I could use up the brownie purple side, which is the side that she wanted more, and still have enough left over to make another sweater. So I basically just used 2.5 skeins. I used the full brown, and then the full brown purple, and then like the mauve purple, and then the orange mauve, and used half of that final skein, that orange mauve skein, and made this for Mom, and ta-da, she can fit into it, which is awesome. That was my concern. Mom is a little bit smaller than me. This is meant to be worn with some positive ease, so you can see I am wearing it in the picture. She didn't really want to do modeled shots, which I can understand. It's a little bit weird if you're not into knitting. So I'm wearing the sweater, so you can see it fits me just fine. It'll fit her with a little bit more positive ease, but not too much. I mean, we're not massively different in sizes now. So yeah, it worked up very quickly. It's knit on a 7, so a nice loose gauge. It'll be perfect for these kind of coming into these warmer days. It'd be a great transition top. She might want to wear something underneath it, just simply because it is Corriedale instead of merino, so it's not quite as soft as a merino sweater would be, but just a basic camisole, which should be fine. And yeah, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. It was very pleasant to knit, and the pattern is great for a beginner knitter because it is very detailed in the information that it gives. You know, it really makes it so that you understand exactly what it is that you should be doing. It was a little bit of a trial for me because I had to root through superfluous information, having been a knitter for, you know, a dozen plus years. There was a lot of information that I didn't need, but I would have really appreciated this when I was a new knitter, or new to sweaters. So if you haven't ever knit a sweater, this might be one that you want to try out. And then I only used half of that fade, so I decided that I was going to go ahead and knit the rest of it. Now, I decided that I didn't want to knit the same pattern because while it looks awesome, I don't often want to knit the same pattern twice, especially not one right after the other. Excuse me. With the exception of socks, I often want to. I mean, gosh, how many patterns are put out every year? It's ridiculous. There are a plethora of patterns that I have in my queue, like 19 pages of patterns in my queue that that I still haven't knit, and there's new ones coming out that I want to knit all the time. So I try to change things up as often as possible, and that held true with this. So this that I knit with the other half of that fade is Hawk Ridge by Claire Beauchart. And Claire Beauchart is Autumn and Indigo on Instagram, if you wanted to follow her. And that's all one word, Autumn and Indigo. And so I started with the other half of the fade, the orangey yellow, and I knit the Hawk Ridge. So here it is, all finished. And I just absolutely love how this turned out. Now this is meant to have a bit more positive ease. So the nice thing is, and how I found this pattern actually, is that I knew what gauge I got on a US 7. And I liked the gauge for my mom's sweater. So I just went searching in Ravelry for patterns that had the same gauge. You know, a top that had the same gauge as what I got on mom's sweater. And so that's what this is. I did find another pattern of hers that was very similar, but it had a little bit different lace bit. And I actually liked that one a little bit better, but it had a different gauge and I didn't want to have to deal with that. So I just did this. Now I will say that this lace bit was my least favorite part of the whole project. And it was one of those lace panels. I want to say it was like 20 rows and you had to do it twice. Maybe it was 30 rows and you had to do it twice, but it was not easily memorized. It was not, what's the word I want? It's right there on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of the word. I'm going to think of it as I'm editing or like 2 o'clock in the morning. No. You guys are probably yelling it at me. But you couldn't just read the knitting and figure out what you were supposed to do next. Gosh, words are hard. I hate when that happens. Anyway, so it drove me crazy because I had to really pay attention. But it was only for come on, it's like 2 inches. The rest of the pattern was very easy and enjoyable. So if you look at the pattern original photo, I having a really hard time with words. You'll see that the sleeves are really short. I added a little bit extra on the sleeves because that was my preference. So that's the only thing that I really changed. Is adding a little bit of extra to the sleeves. And you can see that I did not have to get into that third skein very much. It's just basically this bit here down at the bottom. But I mean, I just absolutely love how perfectly these three skeins faded into each other. I mean, it's really almost hard to tell where I went from skein 1 to skein 2. It's right in here, but it really looks like it was dyed to do that, which I guess technically it is, but yeah, I was really, really impressed with how well these faded into each other, and I love the way that this thing looks. Hopefully I've put up some pictures of me wearing it. I think it is very flattering. I finished it the day before that I left, or I got my FO shots, so it was blocked and everything the day before I left for Minneapolis, and I really wanted to take it with me and wear it in Minneapolis, but I needed to hide my leaves, and so couldn't wear this. Had to wear 3/4 sleeves, which was fine because we were in a hotel that had the air conditioner cranked, so 3/4 sleeves was very comfortable. But yeah, I really, really love the way this turned out. And I have 2 or 3 more of her patterns in my queue now because of knitting this one. This is obviously a yoke, not a raglan, so all of the increases are done here evenly across every so many rows. You do a big increase row, and I just love the way that it fits. I made it, I did the bind off really loose because I wanted it to be really flowy around the waist, and so I did Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, which makes it very loose. And I have a yellow camisole, which works perfectly underneath this, and I can't wait. I might be wearing it to work tomorrow because I absolutely love the way that it turned out. In fact, I think I will wear it tomorrow. I think I have just made that decision. So that means that I have used up that entire fade kit. I had little bits left over of each color, not really enough to really do much of anything with them. All right, I have one more finished object, and that is a pair of socks. And these I finished a little while ago, a couple of weeks. I actually finished them during my daughter's high school graduation, which was good because I got them finished, but I needed just a little bit more because the graduation was long. They had nearly 1,000 kids in their graduating class, and so it was quite a long ceremony, but we were super proud to be there. Anyway, here is a pair of Rose City rollers out of Leading Men Fiber Arts in their Showstopper base, the intermission put up, which is a 50-gram put up, which is perfect, the perfect amount for a pair of shorty socks for me. This colorway is Wilderness, and I love how it turned out. I love the pooling that I got there for the heel flap, for the gusset. And actually Ron was a big fan of this color as well, and he's like, hey, I wouldn't mind a pair of socks knit of those. Now, for Ron, I will need to get a full skein because he doesn't like shorty socks, and he has big feet and he likes his socks tall. So I'm just probably going to buy another full skein of this. Leading Men Fiber Arts is one of my favorites. This Showstopper base I absolutely love for socks, and So you've seen a lot of it. But that was my final FO. And I do have another pair of socks on the needles. I took, in order to make everything easy, I took 2 brand new projects with me to Minneapolis. I took a pair of socks, took yarn for a pair of socks, and then I took yarn for a sweater. Because I didn't want to get stuck. You guys probably have this problem too. I am afraid of going on a trip and running out of knitting. I have never gone on a trip and run out of knitting, but I am always afraid that that's going to happen, and then what will I do with my time? So I always make sure to take plenty, more than enough. And I mean, the chances of me finishing a single pair of socks in a 4-day trip, pretty slim, but I took a pair of socks and a sweater just in case. And I knew that I could, should the emergency arise, go to the local yarn shops that they have there. I did not go to them this trip, but I am going back to Minneapolis for another work trip here, not in the not too distant future, so I might go then. There's one that's called Knit and Bolt, which looked really interesting, and then of course there's Stephen B's shop in Minneapolis, and that one I would love to check out just to say that I've been there. But while I was on my trip, I worked on this pair of socks for Ron. I've been knitting socks since, 2008, maybe 2007, and it took a long time for him to become an adopter of them, but now he's decided that he loves knit socks, and so he has 10 pairs, and he needs more, if only so that I don't have to wash them quite as often. but yeah, so, and he really, he's a man, not to make a gender stereotype, but men can be hard on their socks. And so I'm making it out of workhorse yarns. So this is a skein of opal. That one, I'm not going to try to pronounce it because German is hard. My brother is learning German on Duolingo, and I might need him to start teaching me how to pronounce some of these words. I am doing Spanish on Duolingo and have been for 348 days. And I haven't had much much need to be able to really use it, but I did once order some DoorDash and sent it to my mother-in-law's house instead of ours, and had to call the driver, and he was a natural-born Spanish speaker and was having a hard time understanding the English, so I was able to tell him that he had the wrong address in Spanish, which was awesome to be able to do that. And you could tell that he appreciated the fact that I was trying to, even if my pronunciation was bad and I was probably doing the grammar wrong, but I was trying to make it so that he could understand the problem that I was having. So yeah, anyway, I'm very excited to get through a full year of Duolingo. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep it up daily, because these past couple of weeks have been really hard. It was funny that you'd think that with all that time in Minneapolis, I would have done it really well, but I kept forgetting and had to use my freeze. So I technically haven't done every single day for the past 348 days, but most all of them. Anyway, socks. That's what I'm doing. I'm knitting socks. So I've finished this first sock for Ron. This colorway is 9414, and it's nice and bright and colorful. And we believe in this family that socks don't really have to match anything, so he will wear them with whatever he's wearing, and that's completely fine. I do the same thing. I have not started the second sock, but I did rewind the yarn into a cake, And I weighed it, and it's like 52 grams. So this is 100 gram. These are 100-gram skeins. And I didn't realize that I had knit almost half of it with this first sock. So I'm going to have to, thankfully, since I was on my trip, and I've never knit a whole skein for a pair of socks for run. So I don't know if I made these taller than I normally do. I was really just eyeballing it. But I do have enough, technically, to make the second sock without any problems. And if I do somehow manage to run out, I will just do the afterthought heel differently in a different yarn. That's fine. I did these toe up, Turkish toe cast on. I did a true afterthought heel, and I knit, you know, a length 1x1 ribbing with Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. All right, I have 2 more projects on the needles, and they are both sweaters. As I said, I've been a sweater knitting fool lately, and this is the one I'm kind of liking, getting like 3/4 of the way through one sweater and then starting the next one. That way, because my least favorite part of a project is the starting, and then my second least favorite part is the finishing. So it's like I always have one that's most of the way through, or a good enough way through to be able to enjoy it. So when I was 3/4 of the way through this, I cast on a Shaved Ice by Casapinka. This pattern has been around social media ridiculously for the past year or so, and I wasn't going to make one because I'm like, who would want to make a full fingering weight top with all this different lace patterns and whatnot? For some reason, when I looked at it, I was like, that doesn't seem like it would be enjoyable. But then I was when I went to Yarn Fest in April, we stopped off at the Loopy U, and they had this on the as a sample with these yarns. This is Kama Rose Yaku, and the price point on these is amazing. And I realized that I only needed potentially 1 skein of each of these, and they were like $8.50. And I'm like, I could do a whole sweater for $50. That's awesome. And these colors were amazing. I mean, look at, and then what's my 4th color? Oh, my 4th color isn't, oh, here it is. Yeah, it is. These are so beautiful. So so I went ahead and bought 2 of each. So I guess, yeah, what, $16.32. So I could have made one for $40, less than $40 with tax. I ended up buying 2 of each just in case, because I wasn't sure exactly how much I would need. I'm kind of shrinking, and so I'm like, well, let me get enough to make sure that I don't run out, because, you know, color dye lots and whatnot. So anyway, I have ended up so far only using 1 skein of each color, and I am in the 3rd color now. So here is my Shaved Ice. You can see I started with the green and then went into the coral, and now I'm in the blue. And technically I have only like 1 more repeat of this pattern on the blue, but the pattern does say that if you need more length in the body, that this is the place to put it. So I'm going to add some more repeats of this pattern to make it a little bit longer. I don't like too much cropped, and so yeah, so I might end up hitting that 2nd skein of blue. This is, I mean, I still have a decent amount left, so we'll see. The transition, hopefully you guys can see, the transition is only a couple of rows, and so so yeah, it is possible that I still will only need one skein. I have had a little bit left over of the other colors, just that much. So it's been perfect, and I'm like, oh, so I will still have these amazing colors to make a second skein or second sweater. And so I have decided on this one, which this person that the picture is, she used Kama Rose, and I think it's beautiful. And I'm like, I've got 4 colors already. I think I need 10 total, so I will just get some more and make another another top out of this yarn. I am really enjoying working with this yarn. I love the twist on it. It is, so it's Yakko, Wacko, and Dot from Animaniacs. It's Yaku, Y-A-K-U, 416, 4/16, 4/16ths, I don't know, 1/4. But it's 100% merino. Each of these skeins has 200 meters. The yarn is from Peru. I'm just really enjoying working with it. I just think it's just, it's a pretty yarn. It's a pretty yarn. And it's got a nice twist on it, and the colors are just beautiful. And the Lubiu has it in like 24 different colors. They also have the cotton version, which is a different name, but also in a lot of really pretty colors. So this is where I am on my shaved ice. And, you know, I complained at the beginning, I was saying how I didn't want to knit something that was all these different lace patterns, but this has been so, I still can't remember that word. Know what it is. You just know. You just, gosh, why is that so hard for me? Anyway, so this lace pattern was super easy. Didn't hardly have to look at the chart. This was also very easy. It's like a, I don't know, a 6-row repeat. Same with this one. This one's been a little bit less fun because there's a lot of slipping several stitches yarn purl-wise, and I didn't enjoy that quite as much, but I do like the way it looks. And I love that each one has a little bit of a different feel to it, and you never have to do it for very long before it's time to change. This is a genius pattern. I don't know why I didn't love it the first time. But I'm definitely, I know I mentioned earlier that I don't really like to knit the same patterns more than once, but my mom saw this and she was like, "Ooh, I want one of those." So I'm probably going to knit one for her in different colors. And I think it's going to be just as exciting because it changes up so much. So I knit another similarly typed sweater, gosh, ages ago. I'll see if I can post a picture. I knit it out of yarn that was extra non-superwash. And even though I had, I don't remember if it accidentally got washed, like if I had accidentally washed it in the washer, or if Ron did, or if I had put it in with my socks, because I wash my socks in the washing machine in a linen bag, you know, a delicates bag, and then I lay them out to dry. That might have been the case, but regardless of how it happened, it shrunk and I could no longer wear it. But this kind of reminds me of that. It you know, it kept things interesting and it changed up, and only with that one I knitted all in one color. So this has that added enjoyment of being so many colors and really, really loving it. So yeah, so I've got a little bit left. I haven't worked on this in a little over a week because I stopped working on it while I was in Minneapolis. But I'm going to get right back into it and hopefully get it here finished up before I podcast next. Um, and I'm really, really enjoying that. I highly recommend that you guys check out that yarn and check out that pattern. And Casapinka, this is the first Casapinka pattern that I have knit, though it's not the first that I have bought, because we collect, amongst other things, patterns and yarns and knitting supplies in this household, at least. But it's the first one that I've knit, and so it's the first one that I've really truly read through. And her cat has little comments to make throughout the pattern, which I thought was adorable. So like this pattern is called tail hammocks, because she gives the name and the cat pipes in with the AKA tail hammocks. I just thought it was cool. Anyway, so I'm really enjoying that. And then, as I mentioned, I started a new pattern, whole new project while I was on going to Minneapolis. And so this is what I started, yeah, like the day before we left. I had it so that it was at least cast on, in case I couldn't get into like my pattern and whatnot. On the plane, I knew at least I could grab the yarn and start working. And so this, actually I've kind of changed it up. I wanted to work with this yarn. This is Barocco Millefiori Light, which I had picked up at one of the yarn shops here in town, and I don't remember which one it was. It's not the one that I go to regularly, but I was going through a yarn crawl maybe 2 years ago, and I just fell in love with some of these colors in here, and I liked how they were shiny, kind of, it looks a little like silk. And I was like, ooh, that's really, really pretty. I would really like to knit that. Now, there is no silk in it. It is 50% wool and 50% acrylic. But I do like Barocco yarns. I mean, if you're gonna, if you're looking for something with a nicer price point, and yet really pleasant to knit, and beautiful colors, and I do like that they have these different blends of yarns. So I do like Barocco. I've got several quantities through here in different of their lines, and I really like Barocco. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yes, so I picked up 4 skeins of this, and I'd been thinking about it lately because I had picked it up for a summer top. Excuse me. And that's kind of what I'm knitting right now. That's the kind of the mood that I'm in. And so I grabbed it, and I was looking through patterns of something that looking through my queue. I try to first look through my queue, unless I come across a pattern that blows my mind. I often look through my queue and see what I have that I'm keen on knitting, or I will look through my stash and find a yarn that I want to knit, and then look through my queue to find a pattern that will match that yarn. So that is what I did here. I knew I wanted to knit this, so I looked through my queue to find something, and I found Fable, which looks like this, from Alicia Plummer. And so I was like, ooh, that would, because this is kind of like a gradient striper, sort of, when you knit long rows on it. And I'm like, that might work out lovely with this. And so I cast it on, and I started going, and I fairly quickly determined that I didn't like the way that the yarn was working up for that pattern. And I wasn't sure how much I actually liked the colors for me. And it's not so much the colors, it's something about the yarn. I get tickled with mohair, and this has got quite a halo on it, and so I'm like, it's just gonna itch me, and as a pullover, it's gonna need to be laundered more often, and that's gonna mess up with the halo on this yarn. And so I sent a picture to my mom, and I asked her if she liked it, and she did. And And I don't know why I didn't show it to her before, because this is exactly what she was looking for, something that was more a bunch of colors together, not a solid. And I love solid sweaters, so so anyway, I talked to her about it, and she said that she did like it, and I said, well, I think it would be better as a cardigan. Could you do that? And she was like, yeah, that would be fine. Plus, I think she'll get more use out of it as a cardigan. And so I am basically taking the Fable pattern, and I'm just not joining it in the round. So it's going to be a cardigan with positive ease. So all that to say, here it is. So the colors are really, really pretty. And I love the blues and purples in here. And it still has that kind of silky look when it's knit up. It's knit at a loose gauge, so this will be a nice transition sweater for her, and she'll be able to wear it, I think, over a lot of things. And I don't know if you can see, but it's got quite a halo. So I'm really glad that we're going with a cardigan instead of a pullover, because I don't think that this would be as enjoyable as a base garment, even if you wore it over a camisole. So yeah, I have just taken the sleeves off, as you can see, and really in the pattern I would have joined this in the round a couple of rows ago, so I'm not doing that. So it's just going to be, I'm following the pattern, I just haven't joined in the round. That's the only thing that I'm doing differently at this point. And when I finish it, I will just do a basic button band. I don't even know that I'm going to put buttons on it, because it's big enough to join in the round. It doesn't really need to be buttoned. Like, I think it'll be good as just a flowing open cardigan. So yeah, I am nearly done with the first skein. I have this much left, so you can see I got a lot accomplished with that first skein, and I have 3 more skeins, so I should have plenty to do the whole thing. And yeah, so this is very simple. Now that I've taken the sleeves off, it's just basically knitting back and forth for a bunch of inches until it's time to do the bottom ribbing. And I want to say, I was watching Tony of TLC Yarn Crafts, and she had a video where she knit her first major project, and it was like this massive, massive chenille yarn that she made into a blanket, and the pattern that came with the yarn, I apologize for the creaking, but they're walking around upstairs. The pattern that came with it was meant for a garter stitch blanket, and she was like, I really like the look of stockinette, so she made it stockinette instead, which is great. But then she complained about all the purl rows, and that is the problem with knitting things in stockinette flat, is that you have all those purl rows. Well, I don't purl, I knit backwards instead, and I find that knitting backwards is more pleasurable, and my gauge is better. My purl gauge is much looser than my knit gauge, but my knitting backwards gauge is almost the same as my knitting forwards gauge. So if you ever, if you really hate purling and you're like, I just wish there was another way to do this, look into knitting backwards. It has been a game changer for me. I've been doing it for years, and I absolutely love it. I also can purl backwards. So if I do something that like has a little bit of ribbing in it, I can do that without having to turn it around as well. So I think I learned it initially to do entrelock, and I was like, this is awesome. I should just do this all the time. So yeah, anytime I'm knitting anything flat, I am knitting backwards. So that is all of the knitting that I have. want to finish one of these sweaters before I start another one, but I keep looking at all of this stuff that I have, and I'm like, oh, I want to knit that, I want to knit that. So definitely another summer sweater to be on the needles here pretty soon. They're perfect for me to work on or to wear when I'm in the yarn shop. When I'm in the office, I really enjoy knitting them and wearing them, and I'm really trying to get a dozen done this year. I have tried that for so many years, like 10 years. I have attempted to knit 12 sweaters in a month or in a year, and I have never accomplished it. And so I'm thinking maybe this is the year, because I have done 7 already. This will be 8, and then the one I just showed you is 9. So I'm like, and we're only in June, so it's possible I could do it. Now, a lot of them are short sleeved, but I'm still counting it because, dude, it's like a real garment covering, body, torso covering garment. Anyway, so expect another one here pretty soon. I did want to talk about books really quickly, because I just, yarn in my mouth, I just reread a series that I absolutely love, because I just discovered that a 3rd book came out. So you guys have probably heard of these. The first book is The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, and this is by Rachel Joyce. This book came out in 2010, 2012, somewhere around there. And I heard about it as I was looking for an audiobook. This is amazing on audio. If you are a big fan of audiobooks, or if you've never tried an audiobook, let me say this one would be a great one to try. It is read by Jim Broadbent, who is an amazing English actor, and he does such a great job with this. In fact, he is Harold Fry. And the reason why I reread this is because as I said, the 3rd book came out, and while I was rereading it, or re-listening to it, I was like, oh man, I wish they would make this into a movie with Jim Broadbent as Harold Fry. And so I started looking to see if they had any plans, and I discovered that they did make it into a movie, and it just came out this April. And I was like, and Jim Broadbent is playing Harold Fry. I'm like, this is perfect. I need to watch this. Where can I watch this? And I can't watch it in the United States. It is only a UK release, and they haven't talked about releasing it in the United States at all yet, and I am heartbroken. If anybody knows how I can get, or has heard when this will be released in the United States, I will buy. I'm not looking for free. I just want to be able to watch it, because I have been waiting for 10 years to be able to see this as a movie. So The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry is amazing. Jim Broadbent is amazing as Harold Fry, and his wife is Maureen, who is played by Penelope Wilton, and she is also an amazing English actress. So they do a fantastic job, I'm sure, in the movie. Jim Broadbent does a great job of narrating this, and I absolutely loved it. And then the second book, which isn't more of a, it's not a sequel, it's a companion novel, because it goes along. Let me say, so this Harold Fry's pilgrimage is brought on because he's at the south of England, and he receives a letter from Queenie Hennessy, whom he hasn't spoken to in 20 plus years. And he decides that he's going to, instead of writing her back, he's going to walk to her, and she is in Berwick-upon-Tweed, which is in the northern part of the United States, of England. And so he's walking the entirety of England to save Queenie Hennessy, because she's dying. The second book is a companion series, a companion novel, and it is the love song of Miss Queenie Hennessy. So this is this whole, whatever's going on in here from Queenie's perspective. So in this one you're hearing about Harold's story, and he's kind of relaying stuff that happened to him as he's walking to Berwick-upon-Tweed, so you hear about his backstory and whatnot. This is going on at the same time, but you hear Queenie's backstory and then how she's seeing things as Harold is walking across England. So both of these are amazing, and I've read them both twice, and they're very good. I cannot tell you who is narrating this, but she does an amazing job. And then the third book, which just came out this year, is called Maureen, and it is narrated by Penelope Wilton, who plays Maureen in the movie. It is much smaller, but it is set about a decade. It's set in current time. So this is, 2012. This is set post-COVID, or maybe 2022, let's say. So COVID isn't quite over, but close. And Maureen is going on a pilgrimage of her own. And it is also very good. And I listened to all of these in the past week or so. They are so well done and so enjoyable. And since I had so much free time while traveling, I was able to get through so much of them, but they were wonderful. So I highly recommend you check them out. And these are the new covers, and I am so much of I'm a book collector as much as I am a reader, just like I'm a yarn collector as much as I am a knitter. And so I had to get the new pretty copies. So yeah, highly, highly recommend this series if you have not read them. And I do really recommend that you listen to them on audio. They are, these are like, I don't know, 10, 12 hours. This one I think was 7 hours. So they're not super long. Really enjoyed it. All right, so guys, that's it. This has been an hour long. I'll see how long I can edit it down. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, the wonderful rest of your weekend, and the rest of your summer. And I will talk to you guys later. Happy knitting. Bye.